Welcome back to Sports and Shorts Weekend Tailgate Edition here on 92.9 KVRE, streaming online at kvre.com with Tracy Simpson. I'm Mark Oliver. Tracy back for week number 2 on the show, and a huge week for sports, not only in Garland County and the surrounding areas, but regionally, nationally, and worldwide. What a week it's been in sports this week.
Mark, let me tell all the listeners right now, you've been a rather busy beaver here, buddy. You've been on the road. You're still on the road right now. You're calling in all the way from up in Indiana, and you've had a busy week covering one of our most special teams around the region. Give us some updates on what's going on and where we're at as of Thursday. We record this show on Thursday's game, and it airs on Saturday, so there may be some discrepancies there, but as of Thursday at noon, this is what we've got right now, Mark. Give us the updates.
Yeah, absolutely. So National Park College Nighthawk men's basketball has been the number 1 ranked team in the country for more than half the season, nationally ranked for all of the season. And, of course, when they punched their ticket to the NJCAA National Tournament in Danville, Illinois, I knew I had to be there, Tracy. I knew that I had to make the plans. Spring break, brought the kids, Ben and River are with me in the hotel, and we had to be here because, I've been with National Park College now for about 7 years, and we've never had an athletics program make it this far to the national stage. And I knew that I would be doing not only NPC a disservice, but maybe these student athletes a disservice if I didn't make the trip, grab my cameras, grab my laptop, and make sure that we covered this team and this journey as much as possible. So I have hours of video, photos. I've been writing. I've been, of course, calling in on your morning show every day this week. And it's been an amazing experience so far. National Park College has never made it to the national tournament, and they got there as an at-large bid this year as the number 5 seed in the tournament. 27-1 coming into the tournament. They take down Johnson County Community College in a big game Monday, and then with a huge win Wednesday over North Central Missouri College. They punched their ticket to the Final Four. Never even been to this stage before, and now they're in the Final Four teams as of this recording, and looking very strong in their hopes to take a national championship home.
Well, we were so fortunate to be able to not only be in the likes of these major teams that are playing right now, but Mark, what about earlier this week when we had some of the most, highlights recognized by the players themselves, and they called in on my show, but not only with it being just the way they played so far, but the occasion as far as the records that they've been setting up there and the records that have fallen now, buddy.
The records keep falling for National Park College this season, Tracy. Just going back and looking at everything this team has accomplished this year, I look at sophomore guard Patrick Punch, a man from Houston, Texas, setting the single game 3-point record, had 8 in a contest to break that record. Bryant Hill, young man from Dallas, Texas, who did great things on the high school level for Duncanville, a dynasty-like program in Texas, shattering the single-game scoring record this season, had 50 points in a big win over SAU Tech, one of the Region 2 rivals for this squad. And then, of course, Nakavion White. You can't say enough about what this young man has done in just 2 years for National Park College. He's the all-time leader in rebounds, assists, and blocks. And on Wednesday night, with a 32-point scoring effort, became the all-time leading scorer for the Nighthawks in men's basketball program history. It's the crowning achievement for a young man who continues to do great things. Obviously, he has very big national prospects as he heads to a new home next year. And, certainly there's a lot of rumor and talk about could this guy make it on the stage at the NBA? And the answer is absolutely yes. Tracy, you talked to him Monday morning. It was his birthday. And, I loved the story that he shared was that Coach Dylan Hargrove gave him a chance, a young man out of Odessa, Texas. Nobody came calling for him out of high school. We talk about this at length, ad nauseum, about these high school rankings, your 3 stars, your 4 stars, your 5-star recruits. And sometimes it really just doesn't paint the whole picture. You know that just as well as anybody. You've been following this circuit for so long, but a young man like Nakavion didn't have any calls, didn't have anywhere to go. He went to the team that wanted him, National Park College, and now he's the number 5 the number 5 player in the country. He's playing for, objectively, the number 1 team in the country as far as rankings and success this year, and the future is absolutely bright. There are a handful plus coaches that made the trip to Illinois that have been following Nakavion all season long. It's got to be a great problem to have, to know that not only do you have a home, but you've got your pick out of just about 10 schools.
Well, and you're absolutely right, Mark, man. We've talked about this time and time again. I don't know who develops these rankings. I have no idea. Somehow these know-it-alls know everything. But then again, then you look at these guys that build the brackets, or the ones that do all the different layers of different calibers of what this draft's going to be like, and none of them pan out hardly at all. You look at the likes of some of these teams that are just like Nighthawk basketball. These guys are made up of some kids that didn't know each other from around the country, and just so happened that you got a couple from Texas and you got a couple from here and there, and a couple of homeboys out of Arkansas and Louisiana, and somehow they meshed, not knowing what their rankings were, 3, 4, 5, 10,000, I don't know, whatever it is, but that's what it's all about. You give a chance to a young man, and he's made the best of it. And actually, 7, 8 players on this team, they're making the best of it, whatever rotation they get in. And we cannot expand on this enough. When we were talking to Coach the other day, how he talked about they're not only great students on the court, but they're great students at school too. And that right there, Mark, isn't that what it's all about anyway? They're getting a chance not only to play what they love, but also to get an education. And that's a bonus in itself right there, isn't it?
They're absolutely high character guys, Tracy. Of course, I'm on the road with the team. I'm in the locker room, of course, announcing the live stream broadcast. And a lot of the times, my kids are like the biggest Nighthawk fans in the whole world, especially River, right? So we are always around the team. The kids are always around the team. And these guys, these are 18, 19, 20. Some of them are a little bit older than 20-year-old guys that are so disciplined, and you can tell that they have either younger siblings or nephews. They're great with my kids. They treat them like members of the team. We went out to a team dinner the other night, went to a pizza place here in Illinois. My kids sit with them on the bus. They sit with them at the restaurant, and they're all involved in the conversation. They're great young men with great character, and it's funny, Tracy. I was interviewing a couple of the guys yesterday and sitting down, and off the record, I asked a couple of them, I said, you've done so many great things for this team this season. Surely your phone's got to be blowing up with offers from coaches for your home at the next level. And 2 of the guys on this team really surprised me and said, you know what? I haven't heard anything from anybody yet. And I said, you know what? All you have to do is you just got to keep winning. And, of course, this was before NPC took down the Pirates, North Central Missouri College, on Wednesday, and going out and having amazing performances. I told these guys, I said, if you keep winning, the coaches are going to keep taking notice. That gym is filled with coaches from all across the country. And, of course, there have been many that have been following the story in Hot Springs all season long. And for one of these young men, Tracy, I kid you not, one of these young men yesterday starts the game on an absolute tear, comes out of the gate, lighting up the scoring, and just gets in the head of the Pirates. And after that game, he had 2 coaches waiting for him outside the gym. And he got 2 offers on the spot, Tracy. And I talked to him. We ate some pizza at the hotel after the game, and I talked to him. I said, I told you, you just got to keep your head down, keep working. That magic's going to come. And it absolutely did. Tracy, the catchphrase, kind of the motto for the team this year is stay down. And that's what they say to each other.
Right.
They stay down. They keep this as strictly business. It's been remarkable because you got to think about it. They've never been nationally ranked before this year, and certainly not number 1. And the media is coming at them from all angles, and coaches and interviews from all over the place: radio, print, TV. Channel 7 did a feature. Sentinel Record loves the Nighthawks. But with all the spotlight, they've still managed to keep a level head, and they have not let that spotlight get in their head. All season long, the goal was to get a national championship, and they're committed to getting there, and everything else has to wait. They are committed on making sure they cross the finish line on Saturday, and it's really remarkable the amount of determination, leadership, and just level-headedness that this team has to accomplish its goals.
Well, we touched on this earlier. These young men are playing above, and beyond what their expectations, I'm sure. But then they settled in the first of the. When I talked to Coach earlier, they settled just like you said. They came up with that stay down because they knew they had the potential. They knew right from the get-go it's going to take hard work, but they knew right from the get-go that they've got it to get stayed down, and they've got to focus, but they've got to be one of those teams that everybody relates to, and that's the way I look at them. They're hardworking. They come out. I've seen the practices. I've been down there with you. They go to practice just like they're playing a game, and then afterwards they're lighthearted. They're joking around. They're messing around and everything, and they're keeping focused by doing that though. But here's one thing that I took from this morning when I was talking to you. Travel. They've traveled extensively this year, and right now, traveling that far up, it really hasn't affected their play or anything because I think Coach put that into their squad, into their traveling situation where they're used to it now. It hasn't affected them that much. They still kept focused. They've stayed to the plan. They're staying down, Mark, and that's what they're doing as far as what it's taken. And you would think that a team that far away from home, but you got to think about it also going back. They're from, like you said, Odessa. They're from Houston. They haven't been home in a while. They've been on the road, so this is nothing new to them. And I think this is going to be something that, hey, after Friday's game, when we come back and talk about them next week, I think that'll be the focus once also again, how they did stay down. And I think we'll come back and we'll be talking about a national championship here pretty soon. Right now, Mark and I, we're going to take a break from Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsor. Once again, Mark's all the way up north right now, and he's calling in. And we've got more Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition coming to you here right after these messages on 92.9 and streaming at KVRE.com.
Welcome back to Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition here on 92.9 KVRE, streaming online at KVRE.com. With Tracy Simpson, I'm Mark Oliver. We've talked a lot about college basketball locally, regionally for the National Park College Nighthawks. But it's March Madness, baby, and the bracket is in full sail right now. And Tracy, there's no exciting time, no more exciting sport than the middle of March when all of these basketball teams try to punch their ticket, try to become a national champion. And I'll tell you right now, Tracy, this is probably the hardest bracket that I have ever made in the NCAA tournament. There are so many good teams, and there's so many teams out there right now, Tracy, that are giant question marks for me and just make me uncomfortable. I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of teams out there that are ranked high. They have good records. But right now, my hands are tied on whether or not I can pick them to cross the finish line. I'll be honest with you.
Well, I started this predominantly looking at this, Mark, about 3 months ago when all of a sudden we had number one go down, and then the next number one go down, then the next number one go down. Now, obviously, the UConns and the Purdue's and Houston's of the world, they were up there 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you got Tennessee threatening, and then Arizona. Then they would get beaten. Then there's no dominant team this year, Mark, as you just stated. And as it is right now, I know they got the number one seeds or whatever, but none of the number one seeds, except for UConn, won their tournament in their conference. None of them did, Mark. And so that tells me right alone that the competition level is just like you said. It's crazy. Any one of these teams could come up and win this. And my bracket, you don't even want to look at. I threw darts. I basically threw darts. I'll be honest with you. I'm just going to tell you right now. And you know as well as I do, Mark, that when it comes to not only basketball, but baseball, which you're very familiar with, who's got the hot hand at the end of the season? And you saw a lot of these teams get their ticket punched who had less than 500 records. Now, that right there tells me that, yeah, you might as well get your best darts out and start throwing them right now. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, Tracy. You know, you've alluded to it already, but, you know, when I look at my final four teams, and of course, we're recording this on Thursday, and the madness will have already been well underway at this point, and my bracket is probably already busted by the time that this airs on Saturday, I'll be honest. But, locked in before the start of the games, I can't change the bracket. I only had one number one seed make the Final Four, and it's exactly for the reason that you mentioned, that you cannot trust these teams, following them loosely kind of all throughout the season. And I think in general, college basketball fans will follow their favorite teams. Of course, obviously a lot of Arkansas fans here in the Natural State, but looking at this entire pool, from east to west, north to south, you usually don't start paying attention to a lot of these teams until you get into the first couple weeks of March. And some of these teams, like you said, have really been up and down all year. And I've made mental notes as the season has gone on. And I'll see teams like Purdue that, start the season so strong, and they'll take a really weird loss in the middle of the season and be like, I'm going to make a mental note of that. I can't trust Purdue going into the tournament. And, so I have a list of teams with so many question marks and few answers. But, as of late, the teams that have been hot, punching their tickets in, a lot of upsets in their respective conference tournaments, and a lot of at-large bids that have made it into this tournament that I think will make some noise. But, yeah, as it stands, only one number one seed sits in my Final Four, and it's the only team that I actually feel comfortable with to win it all this year. And for me, I guess no surprise, it's UConn.
Well, they've been obviously throughout the year pretty even, even keel, if that's the terminology you want to use. They've been here before. They've got some repeating stars up there that have been to the dance. They know what time it starts. They know how to go through all, which people don't realize. What they see is these guys playing on the court. They don't realize, like you were talking earlier, Mark, the press time, that they have to go and subject themselves to the press and through all the scrutiny and everything. And then there's no telling what happens back at the hotel room. All the, everybody following them all the time like that. And UConn has, you got to admit, they've got one of the biggest followings around. For a small school, the Huskies travel well, and they also play well. I got a team in the bracket right there with them that I think that's hot right now. And when you talk of UConn, all right, you got to have bench play when you're playing in a tournament like this. You got to have bench play. 5 guys can't go out there and play night in, night out and be successful. And the hot hand right now is Auburn. They put Florida. I mean, Florida's with them till halftime. And then Florida has been a hot team for a while, but Auburn came out. I don't know why. They came out as one of those teams. Pearl had them moving and grooving, man. And by the second half and the 4-minute mark, all of a sudden, boom, where they were about 5 up, all of a sudden they're 17 up. I went, what? From bench play. And I think there's anybody that can give UConn a threat. I think it's Auburn over there. Now, Iowa State's been playing good too. Don't get me wrong. Iowa State, respectively, all right, marched all the way through, won their conference. But so that's a tough bracket that they're all in right there. Iowa State, Auburn, UConn. That's a tough one right there. I think the lesser bracket is down below them with a lot of the emphasis on SEC teams, which have been middle road. You're talking Alabama, Mississippi State, South Carolina. That likes there. And in that same bracket, you got the likes of Arizona, Baylor, North Carolina. And that's a tough go around that West right there, Mark. I don't know. I flipped a coin on a couple of them because I know Mississippi State and Alabama's had a good year. Baylor lost those 2 guards, but Arizona just kept shining through there for some reason. They've stayed focused. And I don't know. That one's going to be a flip of the coin right there. But I think that Arizona, Alabama, Mississippi State, I think any of those could win the West.
Yeah, a lot of question marks, a lot of great basketball. You talked about Auburn. Of course, I've got Auburn and UConn facing off in the Sweet 16, and certainly upset potential. I think that if Connecticut falls in the tournament, at least by my bracket, I think an SEC team will be primed to do it. And of course, in my Elite Eight, I have 3 SEC teams there. I have Tennessee, I have Alabama, and I also have Kentucky. in my Elite Eight, and even going all the way down. I'm kind of teasing at it now, but as I look at my Final Four, of course, we're not in the same room as each other. We didn't talk about this, so this should be a pretty interesting reveal here. But I'm going to go ahead and go to my Final Four that I have for this tournament. It's probably already busted by the time this airs. However, obviously, I've got UConn. I've got UConn facing off against Arizona. And then I have Kentucky and Tennessee going for it on the other side. And my finals is going to be Connecticut versus the University of Kentucky.
Oh, my goodness. Blue, huh? Man, can he stay out of – now, here's the deal with Kentucky. If you watch the last 3 games, he cannot stay at the coach's box. Why does he have to keep coming across the coach's box and get technicals? 2 of them on the game that they played that they lost. One of them, it was obviously a foul. I mean, it was definitely a foul, flagrant foul. And he had to come out there in midcourt, and it just compounded to the loss that they had when they were actually only 5 points behind at that time. Why does he have to come out of the coach's box all the time? I know he's passionate about coaching, don't get me wrong, and he loves his players. But when you're that close in a game and a technical make the difference, he just seems to, I don't know, he's his own worst enemy sometimes when he comes out of there. That's one reason I didn't have Kentucky in it. I went ahead and got up there. I don't know, call me up. I went with Duke, to be honest with you. I don't know why. Coach K's not there anymore. But I went with Duke, Purdue, Arizona, and then I got Auburn throwing the upset on UConn. Oh!
So much excitement. And, of course, I'm sure all of our listeners have wildly different picks than we do. And I think it's so exciting because this year's bracket is so up in the air. And so many teams are good enough to win it. In years past, it'd be really easy to pick, 3 out of the 4 1 seeds to make your Final Four. And I can't recall, I don't know if all 4 1 seeds have ever made it to the Final Four, at least not in recent memory. And I think that there's just really big upset potential. There's a lot of, middle ground in the middle where it's just like 50-50 coin flip battles. And, these are the guys that are going to be shining on the next stage in the NBA as early as next season, playing rookie ball. And I'm really excited that the field is so open. It paves the way for underdogs to really have their stars shine and get in. There's been so many great stories just all across, even just getting into the tournament this year. Tracy, one of those is Long Beach State, the 15 seed that faces off against Arizona in the first round. Of course, they fired their coach before the start of the conference tournament, and the team rallied to get him to the NCAA tournament. And it's one of the most remarkable stories, also kind of confusing stories. So, Long Beach State loses its last 5 games, and they say Coach Dan Monson's not going to come back next year, but he's still going to stay and finish out the season. Well, the players rally behind him and get a big winning streak and get him to the NCAA tournament. And you love Cinderella stories like that.
Oh, no doubt about that, man. I saw that, and I'm like, how can they do that? He still had another year on his contract and such, but that was the emphasis there that you stated, Mark. The players, they rallied around him. They said, this guy got us here. We're going to stick with him. And that right there, man, that I'd love to play for a coach like that any day. You're saying a Cinderella story. All right, in the playoff picture, why they expanded to 68, I have no idea. Maybe you'll explain that to me down the lane somewhere. But now, not just 64. You got the play-ins right now because there are a lot of good teams. But one of those Cinderella stories like you were talking about, Grambling. They take on Montana State and win, and it's their first ever appearance in the NCAA tournament. Their very first ever, and Grambling's got a history, not only, of course, with basketball, with football and such, but now, unfortunately, they've got to go play Purdue now, but as it is, what a story there, Mark. Never been in the NCAA. And I'll make one more remark before we get out of here. You know as well as I do, the 12-5. You know that. There's always the 12-5. One of the 12 seeds comes through somehow and upsets of 5. It's just been that way. That's part of the theory that when people pick out their brackets. But hopefully that proves to be maybe one of those upset busters. We've got more Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition coming up here in just a little bit. We've still got some major things around the area and on the national level too. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition right after these messages on 92.9 and streaming at kvre.com.
And we're back with Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition here on 92.9 KVRE, streaming online at kvre.com. With Tracy Simpson, I'm Mark Oliver on the road in Danville, Illinois this week. And Tracy, it's time to talk about, objectively, my favorite sport. That's Major League Baseball. The bats are swinging, the pitches are flying, and Tracy, we're already underway with the 2024 season. They got things started off in South Korea this season with a big opener, doubleheader, Dodgers, Padres. I don't think it disappointed at all. Of course, the Los Angeles Dodgers have to be the biggest story in baseball after they land the monumental prospect Shohei Ohtani, this generation's Babe Ruth. And I know there's so many comparisons to what he can do both with the bat and with his arm, but I think maybe by the time his career is over, he won't be the next Babe Ruth. He'll be the first Shohei Ohtani.
Well, we talked about this earlier about what this guy represents, not only on our stage, but on the world stage. And this guy, and are we going out on a limb saying Babe Ruth, Bambino level? Yeah. There is that comparison because I'm not sure the other day. I mean, I saw him pitch, play the outfield, hit a home run, and then in the 7th inning stretch, he served beers, Mark. Okay. Now you can't make that kind of story up. All right. But this guy, he's the real deal. And the focus is around him, of course. But like you were talking earlier, the footprint, how baseball now, of course, it's a world dominated, I mean, not just by United States, by no means, but let's go back a little bit. Little League World Championship, not United States World Championship, Little League World Championship. Now, we know it's played right here, the finals are, but it's got teams from all over the world. So really, how big are these games that they just played in South Korea? And will they go on the road with more teams next year? I heard that they sold those tickets out for both those games in less than 30 seconds. So how big is this? How big is this going to expand now, Mark?
It's going to expand. It's going to continue to expand for years. And Tracy, this really all starts back to the World Baseball Classic. This began in 2009. And, of course, the MLB championship is called the World Series, right? But it's really just the best team in the United States and North America, since you include Toronto and the Blue Jays. But the game really is a worldwide phenomenon. You've seen teams like the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Japan, Chinese Taipei, South Korea, all of these teams representing and just delivering massive amounts of talent. I mean, think about Ichiro Suzuki and the impact that he had coming in years ago with the Mariners. Of course, Shohei Ohtani, a Japanese player that is not only a generational talent, but maybe one of the best to ever play the game. And that's because of that worldwide footprint expanding. In the 90s, whenever I was growing up, you had so many players coming in from the Caribbean region, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Cuba, making their way to the United States. And a lot of these players doing whatever it took to continue that, to have that dream. Of course, that touches into the steroid era and things like that. But those are the risks that players were willing to take from other countries to expand into this league, because they knew that it's a life-changing move to be able to play in the MLB. And the MLB is super smart by holding these games like the season opener in South Korea, by expanding what this program does on the international stage and being able to ultimately serve as a recruiting tool for those players to make sure that the MLB stays in front as the world's leading baseball organization.
And that's something. I mean, I don't know where people were when he went to the Dodgers, but and I know we're on the Ohtani kick right now. But can you imagine the contract that he just got and how the influence that is, not only with the Japanese players, but with the world as the stage? If you can go there to the United States and get this kind of contract, this can you? I mean, the little kids of the world that are out there just going, "Oh my!" Not only just wanting his baseball cap, but just the emphasis that is I can do it if I play hard and I get just a couple of lucky breaks. Then man, oh man, just to think of, because that contract, I mean, that was some serious jack that they laid down to get the Dodgers to get him up there, and a lot of it, I mean. He emphasized too, though. Now this is what the curve was on this one, and no pun intended, because he throws a pretty good curve. But he's guaranteed so much of that money. But also, he got it over the course of 10 years, so that he can put it back in savings and not get taxed on it, because Japanese has a different tax structure. But even that, when you're talking $100 million, okay, and guaranteed that. What are the kids of the world thinking now that, hey, if I throw a ball, and like you were saying, I think you just rolled off about 25 different countries right there. But if I get to go to the United States and I get to play ball and have fun with it and make that kind of money, guess what I want for Christmas when I'm 9 years old, Mark, is a bat and baseball and glove. I don't care what it takes. But the emphasis there also, once again, is there's a dream that you can make. You know how hard it is for these third world countries to maybe rise above. But there's scouts out there looking for that kind of clientele, that kind of talent out there all the time. So it can happen, can it, on the big level?
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes down to a 10-year, $700 million deal just to throw a baseball, just to swing a bat right. But it's really much more than that, because when you look at the MLB season, this is a regular season, 162 games. It's very taxing on the body. These guys have to treat their bodies like machines, not to jump over into the NBA, but it's the reason that LeBron James has continued to do what he's done at an elite level for so many years. It's because these guys get it. Gone are the days where you go out and you play baseball games and then you go back to the dugout and you smoke and you drink the rest of the night, right? Like, these guys have it done. They have elite doctors, training staffs, training crews, dietitians. They treat their bodies like machines, well-oiled machines, and it pays off. And, I think, obviously with the steroid era in the past, you're more into this health and wellness era in all sports, really, across the major sports in the U.S. And I think it's helping change the landscape, certainly in the United States, where it's a country where obesity is a large problem and things like that. So it encourages kids. These are great role models, encouraging kids, youngsters, men and women to take care of their bodies, and that will help you get this life-changing money. I mean, absolutely life-changing money. And, of course, the big story with Ohtani during the offseason is where would he land? And, of course, it was the Los Angeles Dodgers. And, I mean, I don't know about you, Tracy, but when that news went live, it was hard to say. I know the Texas Rangers had just won the World Series, yes. But I mean, can you say, like, legitimately that any other team besides the Dodgers is the favorite to win the World Series this year? I don't know.
It's the best money that can be spent in the right direction, because obviously they've got deep pockets. But we'll find out. Sometimes it takes that special emphasis on key players. And like you said, staying healthy. We know that Ohtani had a little bit of a strain, but, I mean, goodness gracious, pitching several games, hitting the bat that's something like, obviously, like anybody's ever seen before since Babe Ruth. But staying healthy, and that's a question mark right there. But we will find out pretty soon. I mean, over in the NL, Dodgers are obviously in the lead right now. Atlanta may return. San Diego, St. Louis. I mean, those are all teams that are complimented and made a run late. But I think Los Angeles is definitely the strongest in the NL right now, don't you?
It's got to be. But you also have to say, other teams, obviously Ohtani is the blockbuster, and it's the deal of the century. It's probably the deal of a lifetime. But in the shadows, a lot of other teams are gearing up for potential deep playoff runs. I mean, look at the Arizona Diamondbacks last year. This is a team that squeaked in as a wild card team, and knocked off all the top dogs on the way to the World Series. So, sometimes it isn't always the best team on paper. It's the hottest team at the moment. And that's exactly what Arizona did before, they fell short against the Texas Rangers, and the Rangers win their first World Series ever. The rest is history. But, what I've seen across the board, I see a Chicago Cubs team that continues to get better. They make a managerial change. They have Craig Counsell coming in. They've got some really good prospects, probably the NL Rookie of the Year coming in as well, joining their staff. Philadelphia continues to get better. St. Louis adds monumental pitching, its biggest gap of last year. They're bolstered the bullpen. They will make a run for the NL Central or for a wild card position. And of course, Atlanta's always going to be there as long as Acuna is there. So the NL is stacked top to bottom. San Diego has Fernando Tatis Jr. Philadelphia has Schwarber and a massive amount of pitching. This is a National League that, under the right circumstances, could possibly play spoiler. But I do think that the Dodgers have to be the favorite. I know it's tough to say because you can say, hey, Mark, what about, listen, Ohtani's not new to the league. He had Mike Trout and the Angels for years, and they never even made the playoffs. So what makes you think that they're World Series hopefuls now? The difference here is that the Los Angeles Dodgers are already a World Series caliber team, and they just added the best player in baseball to try to get him across the finish line. It's leagues different than potentially a poorly run Angels organization in terms of as compared to a battle-tested and battle-ready Dodgers squad.
Yeah, that front office, people don't realize that either. That's behind the curtains, the great Oz up there. And that can belittle a team just as much as anything ever. Sometimes just absolutely locking them down when they should be doing other things and focusing on the games at hand. Real quick, I don't know, man, American League, I love my Orioles, of course, but I love my Texans, my Rangers. I mean, can they repeat, or are they going to have a tough time with Baltimore? Yankees look like they're supposed to be making a move, too, for once.
Yeah, you would think the Yankees bounce back. The Yankees have always boasted a 500 or better record for probably as long as I've been alive at this point. So, they're always in the mix. Certainly I think the NL is more stacked. I think the National League is probably the favorite to win it all, but that doesn't mean that the AL doesn't have weapons out there. Baltimore surprised everybody by turning it around from, the basement to the penthouse last year and everything that they've done with the massive amount of young talent they have. Jackson Holliday is going to be a nationally known name that kids are going to be talking about. They're going to be wearing his jerseys. He's going to be a huge prospect, especially in the American League. But for this Baltimore Orioles organization, you got to think Baltimore is probably certainly one of the front runners. You can't count out Texas. Of course, Texas didn't really lose anybody. They're not rebuilding. They're just reloading. And of course, as much as I hate the Houston Astros on a personal level as my least favorite team in the MLB, I will give them at least a small shred of respect that they will be in the discussion. You cannot discount, I believe it's 7 straight years in the ALCS. They are going to find a way to get there. It's all a matter of who's going to be facing them on the other side of the diamond. I think Houston probably reaches the ALCS, and I see a team such as either Baltimore or maybe even Texas right there in the mix, trying to represent the AL in the World Series.
Yeah, you can't forget how many times they went into extras with the Rangers to, and just barely losing it. You know what I mean? So we'll have more of that, I'm sure, coming up in the fall. We'll be right back. We've got still local level baseball and softball, and we're even going to be talking a little bit about the trade deadline and the agencies as far as, is it really free anymore in the football ranks? All that and much, much more right here in Sports and Shorts. It's the Tailgate Edition at 92.9 and stream it at kvre.com.
Welcome back to Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition here on 92.9 KVRE, streaming online at kvre.com. He's Tracy Simpson. I'm Mark Oliver. Tracy, the fourth segment of the show, it's kind of like fourth down right now. We've got a lot to talk about the NFL free agency market. But first, a little bit of an update on local baseball and softball in the Garland County area. Of course, it's spring break. Kids are out and not much action being played right now on the diamonds, respectively. We'll have a full look next week as the teams return to school. and return to the field. We're really excited with the strong starts that we've seen out of a lot of these squads. And for some of the squads that had a little bit of a slower beginning to the season, some rebounding, some bouncing back. Spring break, obviously, an opportunity to get healthy and heal from some of those bumps and bruises. We can't wait for more coverage on local baseball and softball coming up in next week's show.
No doubt about that, man. We've got and some, already this year, we've seen a couple of those teams at each other. And what you stated last week as far as the rivalries, and we've got some key, really early key games coming up that could determine a season right off the bat as far as these rivalries and how it builds up. And we'll be back next week to talk more about that. Mark, did the free agency, I don't know what is going on there. It's crazy in the portal with as it is college, right? But how come so many key players in the NFL just said, nah, I'm not here anymore. I'm ready to go somewhere else. It can't obviously be the money. Are they trying to get to a team that they just want to move to that city? Or are they just obviously looking for a team that they feel like they're going to be more comfortable with? Because these key players are already making bank. But all of a sudden, they go somewhere else. And I don't see the fit on some of these. Do you?
Well, Tracy, that's exactly what I was going to say. You hear the term armchair quarterback and woulda, coulda, shoulda at the end of a game where it doesn't go the right way for your team. Is there such thing as an armchair GM? Because I don't know very many teams that are currently happy with the moves that have been made, unless maybe out of a couple of things. And I would say potentially Baltimore and maybe Pittsburgh. And that's it. And we'll go into some of the high-profile free agency signings here. I'll start at the top in the NFC East. And one that really surprised me, Tracy, was Saquon Barkley getting moved from the New York Giants across to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, as competitive as the NFC East is, if you would have told me that the Giants were going to move their key piece, their starting running back, inside the division to Philadelphia, there was no amount of money that I would have put on that. There was no amount of money I would have bet on that move, but yet here we are. It's a reality. Tracy, I'm really, really confused for the Giants because it really feels like they've already given up on the season before it's began.
Well, and obviously, and now like you said, though, the same conference, same division. What were they thinking? And then, of course, they're really mixed up at the quarterback position. I don't think they have any clue. How many did they go through last year? Three or four? But anyway, Saquon Barkley, why didn't the Cowboys try for him at least? I don't know what happened, but it's Barkley. And going to the Eagles, which your Houston team in baseball, my team is the Eagles. Okay. As much as I love the center, who, by the way, retired, right? And on to better, as far as I'm concerned, on to better pastures because he's one of the healthiest centers that's ever played the game as hard as he has and leaving it now. And that's a whole nother story we'll talk about. But going to the Eagles, I just didn't see this one. And especially having to move to Philadelphia. Or will he fly in every day for practice? Because I can't imagine living in Philadelphia. If you've ever been to Philadelphia, you know what I'm talking about, Mark. But that one really threw me for a loop right there. And the money, well, there wasn't a cap to have to compete with. They didn't really lose anything. They gave up a little bit as far as picks. But goodness gracious, going out of the division is one thing, but staying right there against one of the most competitive teams that just come off 2 years ago winning the Super Bowl? And I don't know, man, maybe I don't know. I can't talk about that one. Give me another one. Throw me another one. I think the Kirk Cousins one's really mystified me too, man, don't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Kirk Cousins, revitalizes his career as a Minnesota Viking. And he obviously is going to come away as the biggest winner in free agency this year, signing a 4-year, $180 million contract. Tracy, this is an all-in push from the Atlanta Falcons, a very bold move because Cousins is going to be 36 years old to start the season, and he had Achilles surgery last year and has not proven himself that he is going to be the Kirk Cousins that he used to be. Now, I get the move on paper. I do, because the NFC South is a division that is completely in shambles, and it's really up for grab. I mean, the Saints aren't really doing a whole lot. the Buccaneers get into the playoffs because someone had to, and the Carolina Panthers were the worst team in football last year. So, this is absolutely an opportunity for Atlanta to jump in and take the reins of this division and get that division crown. But boy, it's a big gamble. And if it doesn't pay off, you've put a lot of money, you've locked in Cousins for multiple years, and you could really doom the Falcons for multiple years if this doesn't pay off.
Well, and what you just said right there, I'll reiterate. Achilles. You know how many people come back from that and just really strive to the next level or are even successful afterwards? I know there's stories of that usually they're younger players and such like that, but late 30s and you're leaving a really good team in Minnesota with one of the premier receivers in the whole league, and then you're going to who's he even going to throw to down in Atlanta? Would you tell me that? Who's he throwing to down there?
What we'll say, Tracy, is that he's going to develop young talent and make them better.
Okay. All right, because that one had me going right there. I'm sorry, man. I just can't see. I don't know, but I'm still worried about the Achilles and how much they've locked into him, man. That's a gamble that I don't think I could lay odds on, that I don't think Vegas would lay odds on that one, too. But anyway, we will see. I mean, I like Kirk, man. He's very, I don't know, I saw him one night on the, on the Monday Night Football. On the Manning Brothers show, very articulate, his demeanor was low key. He acted like he was going to come back to Minnesota and be a world beater. And all of a sudden I see Atlanta. I mean, I just don't see him as a Falcon. I don't know how. Maybe that's not quite as bad as Barkley, but that's a whole nother story there. But here's another one that mystifies me. But I'll be honest with you, I think this may be a really, really, really good fit. Now, I know he's going to be 30, I think, 30 or 31. But Derrick Henry going to the Ravens, that might be one of the best fits I've ever seen, huh?
I've got a really good friend that is a diehard Tennessee Titans fan, and we have so many conversations and how just bewildering it is that when Derrick Henry was a Titan, how just undervalued and underappreciated he was by his own organization. And, obviously, Derrick Henry knew in the final game of the season for the Titans that he was already out the door. He actually thanked the stadium on his way out over the PA microphone. He knew he was out, whether it was the team getting rid of him or him getting out. And probably the nicest thing that Tennessee did to him throughout his whole career was send him to Baltimore. That's the only show of loyalty I feel like they've really had for him because, he's arguably a top 3 back in the league. And, he goes to the Ravens, who led the league in rushing last season. He gets a phenomenal quarterback in Lamar Jackson. And, we talk about one organization that doesn't necessarily love its players the way it should in Tennessee. I don't know that Baltimore is any better, honestly, with all the gridlock and all the drama with Lamar Jackson and him not getting paid what he deserved. Remember, he was holding out, and then he ends up staying with the team, does his business, and he's an MVP candidate, right? So Lamar Jackson coming off of one of his best seasons, even despite the injury trouble over the year. Baltimore rewards Jackson not with money, but with Derrick Henry, which may end up giving him the help he needs to get a ring after being snubbed for the money last year. This is one of the deals that I actually really, really like in Derrick Henry going to the Ravens. And like I said at the beginning, the Ravens are one of maybe the only teams in free agency that I think are actually like, yeah, we can do this. Our team is paying attention and they're confident and they know what they're doing.
Well, and I think this is going to take a little bit of pressure off of Jackson too, because you saw a little bit of a stymie there when they'd get down in the red zone. And that's generally his MO. He's going to scramble around a little bit, but now you get down, you're in the red zone, and you got Derrick Henry. No, okay, here we go. Just 3-4 yards at a time is all you need, and you know he's going to get it. And then when he breaks it open, well, who's going to stop 240 pounds running a 4-3 at you? I don't know, but I think this will obviously just fit Ravens so much better. I'm not a big, Ravens fan by no means. I just know the fit. I know their style of play. They are smash mouth. They've had to develop that against the Pittsburghs of the world. And so it's just an honest fit. I think that's one of the best trades I've ever seen at that level. And speaking of Pittsburgh, what in the world? Did they get a couple of free gifts to them or are they going to be in trouble? What do you think?
the NFL might want to investigate the Pittsburgh Steelers for tampering this year. Okay, so you talk about the Ravens and all the great moves that they made. Pittsburgh has to make noise in the NFL to keep up with that. They have to. That's one of the biggest rivalries in the AFC. And they do just that. They land Russell Wilson, which I really like that move because I'm happy to see Wilson go to a new move. Denver absolutely mishandled the Russell Wilson situation. And, of course, with the holdout last year, Wilson is benched because he wouldn't take a pay cut to continue playing with the team. And they really did him dirty, Tracy. So I'm glad to see him go to a new environment. But now they bring in Justin Fields from Chicago. Kind of a little bit of question marks there, but, I'm going to have to just tip my hat to Mike Tomlin and just trust that he knows what he's doing. He continues to get this team to the playoffs, even though, since Ben Roethlisberger has gone, this team has not been the same. But they still take a ragtag group of guys to the playoffs last year, and he continues to have winning seasons after winning seasons in terms of the record. So this is a really good thing for Pittsburgh. Got a couple of great weapons with Wilson and Justin Fields, but there's another side of that coin, Tracy, and one that kills me to my soul. So I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and I cannot understand letting go of Fields to Pittsburgh. In my opinion, I felt like Fields was the guy. He needed a few more pieces, specifically wide receivers, and specifically a better offensive line. Chicago has the number one pick, and they deal Fields for a sixth-round pick, basically just throw him away to Pittsburgh under the claim of we're just going to do right by Fields. I don't know that necessarily that was the answer, but maybe you can help make sense of this. I don't know if I can look at this objectively because I'm sick to my stomach about what Chicago did with its quarterback situation.
Well, they obviously lost out on this one. There's no doubt about that. The Bears needed him to stay around. What they needed was a little help from the front office and suggestion that just give him a little bit more time. The guy's obviously talented. But here's the last question I'm going to ask you before we close out today. Who starts in September for Pittsburgh?
It's got to be Russell Wilson, which doesn't make any sense for the Justin Fields deal. It's got to be Wilson to start the way. However, who is starting at the end of the season, I think, is the more interesting question.
There you go.
And in that answer, I think it is Justin Fields.
Not about that. Gang, next week we'll be back at 10 o'clock sharp every Saturday morning, and we've got more information on a local, on a national level. And for Mark Oliver, I'm Tracy Simpson. We'll see you next time with Sports and Shorts Tailgate Edition right here at 92.9. And don't forget, we're streaming at kvre.com. See you, Mark. Have safe travel, buddy.
Thanks, Tracy. We'll catch you next week.